Today, we are going to be finding the next Puka Nacua in Dynasty Fantasy Football, or if you don't want to go that far, the biggest sleeper in the 2024 rookie class. I'm not going to waste your time. That player is Jalen McMillan, the wide receiver out of Washington, and to get a better understanding of why McMillan is so good and why he's being so underrated, let's start from the beginning. Let's look at him as a freshman, and like most freshmen, he didn't really do much. He got on the field, he showed some promise, but there wasn't a whole lot of stats or play overall to back things up. However, as a sophomore, he absolutely broke out, catching 79 passes for 1,098 yards and 8 touchdowns. So Washington loves to throw the ball. People are going to knock on some of these players because they're going to be like, oh, Washington just airs the ball out every single play, which can be true. It's important to take that into consideration when you're looking at some of these air raid college offenses where it's easy to put up statistical numbers because you have such a high number of pass attempts per game, which obviously isn't really fair mark to some of these other college players. But if you look at McMillan's efficiency stats, he drew a 21.2% team target share as a sophomore. Now, we want this target share to be above 20%, and that's an indication of a very, very good player. He's not just getting these stats because the team's passing the ball a million times per game. He's efficient with those targets, and he's putting up a ton of catches, yards, and touchdowns. So love to see that from McMillan, and he did that all as a sophomore. Unfortunately, McMillan suffered a knee injury and really wasn't 100% until the college football playoffs last year. So keep that in mind. He didn't play the entire 2023 season, and even when he did, I watched every single game of McMillan's, and you could clearly tell that they were having Polk be that number 2 guy because McMillan wasn't the same player he was in that 2022 season. However, once the college football playoffs hit, McMillan finally had a lot of time to rest, and he looked phenomenal. He was arguably the second best wide receiver on Washington during that stretch. Obviously, you have Rome Odunze. But from watching the games, I liked McMillan much, much more than Jalen Polk during that time. So another one of the concerns with McMillan is, he's only going to be a slot player. Because in 2022, McMillan played 459 out of 496 of his snaps from the slot. Obviously, that considerable amount of snaps and that considerable amount of slot play means that, McMillan probably is going to be a slot-only guy in the NFL. However, we saw a guy, Jaden Reed, who is being very highly valued in Dynasty, played 462 of his 631 snaps in the slot in the NFL level. Now, where it gets kind of crazy is if you look at McMillan's college numbers and you're saying, he's only a slot guy, let's go back into his 2021 season. He played 319 snaps, and he played 273 snaps out wide versus only 45 slot snaps. So we have the narrative of, McMillan looks like he's only going to be a slot guy in the NFL. Obviously, he was amazing when he was in the slot, but it's not like he played in the slot for his entire college career. He had the ability to play outside, and I think that's because he's not the smallest guy in the world. He's not the slowest guy in the world. In fact, we're going to be looking at his RAS score, and he ran a 4.47 40-yard dash, which is very, very good. That gives him an 8.2 RAS composite score. But I really like Jalen McMillan, and I'm not only thinking that, one, is he going to be a great slot player as a rookie, a great slot player whenever he gets the chance. That's probably where he's going to be deployed the most. But as he develops in the NFL, I truly believe that he can play on the outside. He can play on the inside. He can almost play anywhere. He's not the small, slow, slot-type player that many people make him out to be. Now let's dive in a little bit more into Jalen McMillan, and let's look at his RAS score because he is arguably a big riser from the combine, looked 100% and scored a 9.33, showing that he is an elite athlete. Measured in okay height and weight according to the NFL website, he is, like we mentioned, 6'1", 197 pounds, so that's solid. Good vertical, good broad jump, decent shuttle, decent 3-cone, good 10-yard split, 1.53. That's actually his highest mark with a 9.05 specific composite speed grade there. And overall, scored a 9.33 RAS, which, as we talked about, it's not the biggest deal for wide receivers in the NFL, right? It helps their draft capital, but athletic scores don't necessarily predict fantasy football relevance the same way it does for running backs. However, for slot guys, it's very important because it tells you, Are they a slot guy because they just really play well there? They're really good, really fast, smooth route runner? Are they one of those guys that, maybe they can catch the ball, but you're kind of putting them there because they're a good enough player, but you kind of have to hide their weaknesses? I really don't see a whole lot of weaknesses in McMillan's game other than the fact that we haven't seen multiple years of elite production. But like I said, not all of that's his fault because he got injured and wasn't able to play at 100% or even really recover until the end of the 2023 season. Now, the last point I'm going to touch on before we wrap this up is another reason why McMillan is being shorted in Dynasty leagues, and that's because he doesn't have great projected draft capital. Looking at NFL mock draft database, he's right now projected to go in the 3rd round, 95th overall. So it's not horrible draft capital. Any player within the top 100 picks is normally still fantasy relevant, or at least will get a chance to see the field at some point in their NFL career, especially early on. But the reason McMillan's going this low is because he's primarily still a slot guy. Like I said, I think he has the talent and ability to play outside at some point in his career, but based on what he did in the slot, and that's where his insane season was, he's going to be drafted as a slot-only player, at least to start his rookie season. And that's what NFL teams are going to be looking for. However, slot receivers are not valued quite as much as these Alpha X vertical guys because, unfortunately, it's a lot easier to find them, and it's a lot easier to help them succeed because of all the schematic fits in the NFL. Obviously, it's in the Rams offense. You have Sean McVay hooking things up for Puka Nacua, little connection there, and Cooper Kupp, who are elite from the slot because McVay is able to get them open, put them in a position, and motion them all around in order for where they don't necessarily have to win on the line of scrimmage like those players that are playing on the outside. It doesn't mean they're a bad player, but it does mean that they're probably not as big, strong, or as freakishly fast as those players that play on the outside. Those players are great from a real-life perspective, but the slot guys are the ones that eat in PPR leagues. Those guys are the ones that's getting peppered with targets. We saw with Cooper Kupp. We saw with Puka Nacua. Those guys in the Rams offense and just all around the league. Jaden Reed even played in the slot, even though he didn't have a high number of snaps, because he's getting those high volume, high efficiency, important snaps where he's in the slot, getting targeted a ton by Jordan Reed near the line of scrimmage, deep down the field on those crossing routes from the slot as well. It is very, very important for fantasy and is very helpful. So if McMillan gets respectable draft capital, goes in the top 100 picks, I really have no concern over that. It does knock him down a little bit because he's not going to get an immediate opportunity to play. He's not going to have that team investment like some of these other guys. But heading over to my rankings, Jalen McMillan is my wide receiver 9, 1 below Troy Franklin, and 1 above Keon Coleman. So I challenge another Dynasty creator, Dynasty user, to let me know if they have McMillan ranked higher than this. I highly doubt anyone in the space has McMillan higher than me. But if you think that McMillan is going to be a stud, let me know down below. If you think that he's going to be a bust and I'm just an idiot, let me know why as well. I would love to have a debate. I love talking about Jalen McMillan, and I'm excited to see where he goes in the NFL draft. But again, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.